Hello. I was just saying my two favorite people to meet each other. This is Omar, this is Serufusa, and I'm Hewan. And we are here today to record our session, Roots, Routes, and Real Talk. And I'm very excited because we are thinking with Serufusa, who should be our first guest ever. So Omar, surprise, you're our first guest ever.
Very, very happy. Very happy. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for the honor and privilege.
And the rationale was we were like, who are our favorite people in the world and who do we have great conversations with? Mine was Omar and Surface had someone else, but I'm stubborn, so I win.
See, Omar, this is how it works. Like I always get trumped in the end, but
It happens.
Amazing. So we're going to have a great discussion. The 3 points we're going to be following as ever is roots, the routes that Omar took. And we're going to have some real talk moment as ever. Serufusa is going to be decoration here because I think Omar and I are going to be doing all the talking. But we give you permission to interject.
that's all I'm here for. That's all I'm here for. And Omar, if you notice, I have my hat on. And for our guests who are listening, I have my hat on. And every of these recordings that we'll be making, I'll be putting on a new hat every time. So it's kind of like my thing to make it different. So I'm happy to be a flower on the wall and flex my hats as we talk.
I like it a lot. I like it. I like the hat. It's very nice.
Good. Well, great to meet you, Omar. I think it's really fantastic to have you here. And I think it's such an honor to have you because we've heard a lot about the great work that you do. And I guess maybe fasting about the roots that get you to where you are.
Mm-hmm.
Just tell us a bit about your early influences and what got you to where you are, because I've heard a lot about you from Hewan and I looked you up on LinkedIn. I've done my digging on all the sources that I can find, but I would love to hear it straight from you and to our listeners as well.
Of course. Well, nice to meet you as well. It's great to be on this platform with the two of you. I love what you all are doing. This is really, really cool that you are, kind of having this platform for people. And I really look forward to you guys having a lot of success together on the platform. In my case, I'm American, born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. In my youth, we moved around a lot. So I lived in primarily 3 places growing up. So I grew up in Pittsburgh, I lived in Charleston, West Virginia, then I lived in Lake Charles, Louisiana. And I think that, within Charleston, West Virginia, I moved around like 5 times in the same city. So I think that moving and agility and adapting to new environments and new people was put into me early by all of that moving as a child. And so that kind of, gets into your DNA a little bit around being comfortable with being uncomfortable, going into foreign and unfamiliar environments quite easily and being able to navigate, that ambiguity of like just not knowing anybody in a place or whatnot and being comfortable in that space. Like right now, I'm very comfortable. You can kind of drop me anywhere on earth and I'll be okay. And I think a lot of that comes back to my roots from, moving around a lot when I was much younger.
Amazing. And that's why we've decided to drop you into this podcast. Like, you felt like you'd be absolutely comfortable meeting me for the first time.
1,000%. Yeah, of course.
And just digging into it and just driving. And I think when you say that, I think it resonates a lot with me because similar to Hewan and I think we are almost like that. We've been on a journey, both geographically, professionally, like emotionally on so many fronts that, it just feels very familiar what you're saying. And those are the nuggets because you just figure out a way and you just go along and no time to reflect and to see that. And looking at what you did as well, I hear and I understand that you've really been great at team sports, especially basketball. And for me, that resonated with me because I remember I told you earlier, I spent some time in the US, maybe like 10 years ago, studying. And I studied I'm a medical doctor by profession, and I did a Master of Public Health degree and studied policy and management. But to be honest, in all that I studied in that time in the US, the one thing I remember the most was studying all the NBA teams, cramming the starting 5, the general managers and their owners. And that's the one sort of piece of knowledge I've carried through all these years. And so, when I heard that you love basketball as well and you're into team sports, it just felt like a slam dunk for me. So, what has it meant for you?
Well, I think it was very formative. Two things in a team environment. So one was basketball, but the other one was music and orchestra. And so those
Yeah.
two influences, I have both of them on me from an early age. I was definitely much better at one than the other, and I'll let you guess which one that was. But so we always want what we can't have in life. I really wanted to be a good basketball player because basketball was just cooler than, playing seven instruments, even though that's cool now, but that wasn't cool when I was growing up. It just made you a big, music nerd. And so for me, basketball was the thing I really pursued with everything. And I was not good at, initially I was too short. People who know me now know me as, 6'2" big guy. But when I was in sixth grade, I was 5'4". I was one of the shortest kids in my class, and a lot of girls were taller than me, and I got bullied and all these things. And so I thought that basketball would be the differentiator. And I moved to this neighborhood where all the boys in the neighborhood could really play basketball. And I had a neighbor across the street from me, and we played basketball every day, like one-on-one for 4 years before I beat him. Like he beat me every time he played for 4 years. And once I beat him, I never lost again. But it was like that. But I also had grown like 7 inches, and my athleticism had come in. I could really jump, and I had some athletic advantages over my friend at that time. So I grew into that ability. I was so happy that I grew because then I could actually play basketball. I could actually do what I wanted to do, and I was one of the most athletic people on my team. But team sports teaches you it's not about yourself. It's about the group success, especially. And orchestra is much more about that. So playing in a band, you're just one part of a larger sound. And, when you're playing, like I played towards the front of the band. And so you hear the sound washing over you from behind you. And it's like there's nothing like it in life is to hear the collective sound that you make when everybody is adept at perfecting their craft. So all the flute players are dedicated, the trombones are dedicated, the drummers we're all dedicated individually. We bring our best selves, and then together we create a beautiful sound that can play almost anything. I think music was really where the team, concept got into
Yeah.
my bones, but basketball is where the leadership concept got into my bones because I had poor leaders in basketball. I had some of the worst coaches ever, like who did not
Yeah.
know how to maximize the team's talents, did not know how to. One of the ongoing regrets of my life is that I was just at my 30-year high school reunion like 2 months ago, and of course we sit there and we're like, man, we wish we could go back because knowing then what we know now, we would have like structured our team completely differently, would have played differently. It was just one of those things where it was just a kind of bit of just a life lesson.
Wow, deep thoughts.
I see it actually now that you've learned that lesson in all the books that I read. I'm like, oh, so maybe this is
Yeah.
like something deep rooted that Omar is trying to figure out for and sort out for as a life purpose, basically. Sorry, so you're gonna say something.
And I think, yeah, I mean, absolutely, very deep. And as you were saying that, I was just hoping that your high school basketball coaches are not listening to this podcast because,
He's passed away. He's passed on
okay,
some years ago. But I would tell him to his face, I'm like, you're a nice man. You're a horrible basketball coach. Oh, Hewan knows I keep it real. Like,
that's
That's the reason we're here.
that's good. That's good, and that's why. And I mean, it's fascinating because you've taken from that. And similar to myself, I mean, I love sport as well, and I love music as well. And I think it's those two nuggets that you've talked about are important. And before I hand over to Hewan, I mean, it's sounds like you've taken all those pieces from your journey before and almost seamlessly embedded them into your sort of your philosophy of leadership, your philosophy of coaching. I know you've also had a career in pharma as well, which we can speak a bit about shortly. But I think it's just wonderful how you've done that. And for me, the question then to me is, and I know you, without giving names or sharing specifics wherever it's not appropriate, but where have you applied that in an individual and you felt like, gosh, this really worked out? Like, what are some of the successes that you've had that really bring to life all those experiences? Because as we all
Right.
know, you can talk the talk, but I just want to make sure you're walking the walk as well, because that makes
Of
it real.
course.
And also to be transparent, when I heard that, oh, like you've talked to Hewan before and you've given us some advice, I was like, on one hand it makes sense knowing Hewan. On the other hand, I'm like, it doesn't make sense because I mean I know she's still working, she's still growing, so and it's still part of the journey. So I would love to see how that has come into play.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, so you have to determine in your life what's your definition of success. And so once I became an organizational leader, I had a very, very simple definition of success, which was I judge myself on the amount of people who progressed because of me or after me. And I'm very proud of the fact that of people that I've led, now I've got 6 former employees of mine have become general managers. And so that may not sound like a big number to you all listening, but I believe that true leaders create more leaders. And to be able to create someone who did the job that you were doing when you were leading them, and to see them succeed beyond you is my greatest pleasure in life, is to see, that's what I live for, is really the success of the people that I poured into, and to see them now having great success and pouring into other people. And that's like really what it's like to pay it forward. So I think that of all the things I could say about my leadership experience and all the things, what matters most to me is the people who are thriving as a result of the environments, not even me, but the environments I cultivated as a leader that allowed them to feel empowered enough to progress. And one story I'll tell you is I had an assistant, Thais, when I was in Brazil, my last job in 2018 to 20 with the Allergan in Brazil. And she was like a career executive assistant. And we used to have performance development conversations, and I was like, Thais, are you sure that this is your path? Like, this is all you want? You've been an executive assistant to senior level, like CEOs for the last 10 years. She's like, yeah, I think that this is really what I want to do. I just said, listen, just really think about it. Make sure that there's nothing else you want to pursue, because you're so talented and so people oriented. You can offer, not that you're not offering a lot in your current capacity, what you are, but just make sure that you're not leaving any stone unturned. And then it was a great pleasure to me, like 2 years after I left, she sends me a message on WhatsApp saying, Omar, I'm now getting into marketing. I'm a product manager. She leads the DEI committee for Allergan in Brazil. She's now progressed to like a senior product manager level in marketing. So to completely change careers, completely change paths. And it's all her, and all due to her work effort. But if I had created any nugget or seed in her brain that led her to make these decisions, then that's another way that I judge my success.
Amazing. And before I hand over to Owen, I'll just say, it reminds me of a quote where they say, legacy is not only what you leave behind, but who you leave behind. And that's super important as we build our legacies. That's
7%.
super impressive.
Thank you.
Good. Hewan, to you.
My turn now. We're going to talk a bit about routes now, Omar.
Okay.
And what was super interesting for me was that at a time where we didn't have so many Black young talent in the pharma industry a couple of years back, and it was not that long ago, you not only thrived, but smashed all the ceilings and managed to grow. So I wanted people to hear a bit more about your experience of facing adversity, and despite being one of the few, making it through, because I think that will inspire so many who feel maybe the minority in wherever they are. So could you tell us a bit more about how you joined the pharma sector, how you went to so many places, including Brazil as a young manager, and the exciting things you've done there?
Yeah, so I ended up going to college at Florida A&M University, which, for those who do not know, it's a historically Black college and university in America, 99%, African American. And after having gone to all white schools my entire life, it was a gigantic flip in terms of, just being in a different environment, being surrounded by the most talented people of your race that you've ever met, and just living, seeing a different side of life. And because of Florida A&M, I got an opportunity to do an early internship with Pfizer back when I was 20 years old. And so I did my first pharmaceutical internship as a sales rep in Detroit, Michigan when I was 20, going on 21. And that was a very formative experience for me, because you realize as a sales rep, I'm communicating to a highly trained medical professional who is responsible for the health and well-being of a community, basically. And if I provide bad information, misleading information, incorrect information, I can have a detrimental effect on the health of a community. And so I saw that at 20 years old. I was like, this is really serious, but I like it. I like the pressure that comes with this role in healthcare. I'm not selling fizzy water. I'm not selling crisps. I am, I'm part of a of a actually can uplift and improve things for humans. And I want to do that. So I knew after that first internship that I wanted to be in pharma, didn't know how I was going to matriculate. And then Pfizer came back to me a year and a half later and offered me an internship in Sao Paulo, Brazil. And so I went down there as an international marketing intern at the age of 23, and I was down in Brazil for 16 months. So now I've had 2 internships with Pfizer, 24 months before I get my MBA, and I'm set up for success. And I've had a local experience in the US in sales. I've had a international marketing experience. I've, seen myself once again thrown to the wolves in a whole different cultural context and survived that, learned a new language. And so I'm feeling, really confident going into my first, career role in Schering-Plough when I was 25. I got put into their fast track management associates program. And I thought everything was going to be smooth sailing from there, to be honest. I mean, it felt like I had kind of made it, and then I meet my second boss in my career in pharma, this woman who was working in the cardiovascular space at the time, and she saw no value in me. So I was like a high paid, I don't know what to her, but my job every day, and I'm making 6 figures at this point. I'm 25 years old. I'm making 6 figures, which is not an insignificant amount of money to start your career off with. And she has me basically looking at a stack of PowerPoints every day to find typing errors. So I was like checking stacks of PowerPoints for typographical errors all day long, and then sending greeting card notes to doctors who attended our medical education programs. That was my entire job. So I was not engaged at all with my work, and I was not bringing my best self to work. I was arriving at work late. I was very super demotivated. I didn't know what was going to happen. And she's giving me low marks. And then I call Coach in the book, but as a real person, he plucks me out of obscurity and gives me an opportunity on his team. He says, listen, the word on you is, we don't know what the word on you is. You went to you did the sales rotation and you didn't have a manager, so we don't know what you did there. You came into the home office for 3 months and your boss says you're not detail oriented and you can't focus well. So he's like, this is your last chance. In 3 months, you're either going to be on my team or you're going to be out of Schering-Plough. He gave me an ultimatum, and really back to the wall, I flew. And so on that team, under this man's tutelage and his coaching and the team culture he created, which was still by far one of the best teams I've ever been a part of. Now I've been off that team since 2008. We still send Thanksgiving notes to each other 17 years later. We're still very, very close as a team. My career flew. So I went from, associate product manager to senior product manager in a year and a half. And then I was business unit director by the time I was 29. Because of the ramp that these guys put me on this team and giving me opportunity to shine. So I went back to Brazil at 29 to be a BU head. So now I'm on the executive management team. I have a P&L responsibility. I've got sales and marketing. I had never managed a single human being on earth. I've been a district sales manager. I had no people management experience at all. But what I had was, I was a student of leadership. I'd been reading the best leadership books, I read voraciously, 50 books a year, all the gurus. I have all their information in my head. I'm like coaching myself through their masterworks, and I have all this, energy when I finally get my own team. And it was like the best experience of my life, leading a team for the first time, building up my sales force from 42 people to 108 people over 2 years, turning the business around, really being an executive leader, like being responsible for the culture of the company, not just the culture of my division. It was amazing. And then after 2 years, I get promoted, a 2-level promotion from BU head to senior marketing director of a $4.5 billion brand in the US. And so that was an amazing, these kind of things don't happen to people. Like, I don't know many people who've gotten 2 double promotions, and I don't know anybody who's been a senior marketing director before they're 31. So it was like just history 2 times. And I'm a young black man doing this as well, which is a third like thing is not supposed to happen. And I was doing great and I was really, really happy. But then my company got bought and it set me on a whole different path. So you can have the best plans in the world. You could be having all the success in the world and it can be taken from you.
Have any job.
Yeah. And it makes it even worse because I was being told, like, I had SVPs telling me, Omar, on your current trajectory, you're senior marketing director at 31, you're going to be in the C-suite by the time you're 38. Like you're going to be
Wow.
leading the company at this rate. You'll be in the C-suite by 38. So I'm like, oh my God, like, your head's all pumped up and you're feeling like, oh my God. And then all of a sudden overnight, gone, everything gone.
Humbled.
Gone, company gone, all those people gone. I'll never forget day one of the integration, like literally all of my senior leaders were gone. Like it was me, like holding the bag and my team. Everyone else have left the company, have exited stage left. There's nothing like it. Like there's nobody there.
Right after that, like it must be so depressing. You were like the shining star. You are gonna be CEO very soon. Now you're like, no job, no people around me, nobody to manage, nothing. How did you survive that?
I think once again, like I talked about earlier, knowing your definition of success, you also have to know what's right for you and what's wrong for you. So at that time, the only thing that I knew was I was not going to go work for that company. Like that's all I knew. I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew that I was not going to work there. So, because I had already been, kind of like partnering with them for the last 6 years in a co-promotion. So I knew that culturally it was not a fit for me. So I raised my hand, I got out, and then I had to figure out what was next for myself. So that's when I started my publishing company back in 2009, 2010 with two other authors, the Pantheon Collective. And then I joined a technology startup in a whole different field, whole different industry. And I began doing management consulting. So I was doing all these things, writing my first novel, publishing books with my publishing partners, working on a startup, doing some management consulting on the side for like 2 years, for almost 3 years. And then financial realities hit, the startup was not going to work out. And, I was once again finding myself in a very kind of like difficult place. And at that moment, one of my great friends joined GSK in Turkey as the vice president of operations for the region. And he offered me a job. And it was a level down. It wasn't a downward development. It was literally, I had to start over again as director of marketing. I was senior marketing director when I left of a $4.5 billion brand. I go to director in Turkey. So I have to go to Turkey, and I'm localized. I'm not an expat. So up to that point, I'd only dealt with being expated. I'd never been localized in a market. So it's a big change, big transformation. And you go from having full agency. Everything I did every day was what I wanted to do. And now I'm back in a corporate environment. And I had to reassimilate to corporate. And that first year in Istanbul was one of the worst and hardest years of my life. I hated everything and everybody. I was not having a good time. And Hewan, you know me as a very positive person, but I was not happy.
What happened?
I was not happy.
Let me talk to.
No, it wasn't about anybody else. It was about me. I remember like the job was too easy. It was not hard work. And so, I was using like maybe 10% of my capacity in that role. So I would get home by 5:30 every day. And my only goal in life was to make it to 10 p.m. so I could go to sleep. Like that's how depressed I was. Like it was really bad. That was bad. But then, I'm never going to be down for too long. Right? I'm never going to be held down for too long. So then I figured out, a way to add value beyond my current capacity. I saw this trend of digital happening, and I saw that GSK was kind of really behind just behind the 8 ball, and it went as it relates to digital at that time. And I knew, because I had launched my own, I'd sold 75,000 copies of my own book digitally, like all digitally. So I knew social media marketing, I knew Twitter, I knew all this stuff that no one else in pharma really knew at that time. So I was very confident that I could help lead and steer the future direction of digital transformation for GSK. And I asked my best friend / boss at the time, if he would let me add this to my title, and he did, and I became multi-channel engagement director for the region. And with another few people around the world, we began to cobble together a strategy to move GSK into the future. And we did that. By the time I left Istanbul, we had received approval to move GSK into the future of CRM, the future of digital engagement. And then I got to be GM in Indonesia and lead the stuff that I had actually, but once again, this is another leap. You go from, okay, I have 2 direct reports in Istanbul. I've been working, kind of this regional capacity, which you don't really have. In the regional capacity, you don't have true accountability. You're trying to add value, but you don't have real accountability. To going to be like, someone gives you like the keys to a gigantic cruise ship and says drive, which is a market. They hand you a market and say, hey, here you go. So now I've got to manage functions that I've never managed before: IT, regulatory, legal, HR, finance. You got to lead your own direct reports. You got to lead a 900-person operation in a country with 18,000 islands and political craziness and all this stuff. And so it's like thrown to the wolves again. So get through that journey, 3.5 years in Indonesia, which were really where I said I got my PhD in leadership. That's where it came. Like everything
Yeah.
that you see
Yeah.
now is a result of the experience I had in Indonesia in those 3.5 years.
And
Yeah.
what I love about all this that you've just shared is it just feels like it's clearly not been linear, right? Because for a
No.
lot of us, whether we are in academia, whether we are working in a nonprofit or working in pharma, we imagined our careers going in a very linear way. And that's the way it sets you up for success. And you believe like that's how it's going to work. But clearly, for a number of reasons, either personal or reasons not organizational or even geopolitical, sometimes things don't work out. It's good, one, that you're actually being very vulnerable and sharing that actually you've had some really difficult times where you felt like it's tough, you've had to dig in and do stuff. But that arc of hope, that arc of reinvention, I think is such an important one that we all have.
Yeah, I mean, it's really important to know yourself, to thyself be true. And you begin to learn what you're capable of and what you can handle. And I think it's really important. It's part, and this, we're not in a real talk part of the conversation yet, but in the real
We're
talk,
getting there.
I would
Yeah,
tell
go
you
for it. Yeah.
you have to push yourself. So where you're strong, you have to put heavier and heavier and heavier and heavier weight on the bar until you can't lift it anymore. But you have to push yourself in those areas. That's how you become excellent. That's how you become great. By lifting, a weight you can lift 1,000 times. That's not how you get stronger. You get stronger by putting higher and higher weights and challenging yourself. So leaping from a regional marketing job to being a general manager, president, final signatory, legally responsible for everything that happens in an operation.
Yeah.
That's it's a gigantic leap. Like it was bigger than going from a marketing director, BU head, to senior marketing director. There's nothing bigger that I did in my entire life than jumping from Istanbul to Jakarta. And it fundamentally transformed me because that's where you get to see what do you really believe? So in Indonesian culture, they're top-down, patriarchal, hierarchical. So the easiest thing to do in that culture is to show up and tell people what to do. They'll do it and you'll get the result. That's the easiest thing to do. I refuse to do it because I'm a servant leader to my core. And I believe that leadership exists to serve the people who create value for the customer. I believe it to my own detriment. And so I made it really hard on myself for about 2.5 years because I stuck to my guns on this issue. And I had disconnects with leaders on my team. I had arguments with senior leaders about this process. I was like, guys, this is going to work in the end. We're going to empower and enable this culture. These people are going to be pushed. They're going to become better. They're going to become greater. They're going to become more autonomous and have greater agency. We have to stick to our guns. And we did that. And after 2.5 years of consistency, then you begin to see that wheel move. You push on this thing for 2.5 years and finally it starts to move. But once it starts moving, that inertia effect is real. Like it moves. And, a few years later after I left, they became the best place to work in Indonesia. And they've been on that list for the last 5 years. So,
Amazing.
and I know a lot of it is due to the work that we started, when I was there. And then I go back to Brazil for my third and last stint in Brazil when I'm 41 years old. And it was really cool to go from being intern in the US to being CEO of your company. Like you don't get to see that arc, and it's really, really cool. And that was a great capstone experience for me in pharma, going to lead a top 5 market in the world with all that pressure. Really in a whole different industry. Allergan is in medical aesthetics, and so it's a very different world than traditional pharma. And then Allergan gets bought by AbbVie. So once again, you think you're going someplace, you're on a journey, and then boom, and two things happen, that happens and the pandemic happens, right? So then you really it's a double whammy. And in my case, my mother passed away. So I had 3 things happen at the exact same time in 2020. Yeah. So my career changed, the pandemic hit, so you're on lockdown, so you're by yourself. And then this woman of my life passes away. So you're like, okay, what now? What are you going to do now? And luckily I'd been preparing myself for success. And I talk about this either financially or with, whatever your side hustle or passion is outside of corporate, put energy into it now because you never know where it's going to take you later on.
The
I'd already started.
podcast.
Yeah, exactly. Put energy into it now, because you never know, that thing that you thought was a hobby ends up becoming very lucrative later on. Like the books I was putting out, they were getting a great response, but I was still working my corporate job. I was like, I didn't think I was going to be like this, touring author going around the world doing keynotes and all this stuff. And all of a sudden, this is my lifeline. This is all I have, is I have the work that I'm standing on. And luckily, once again, friends come out and they start supporting immediately and say, listen, we know you're a free agent now. Can you help us with this project, that project? And you slowly but surely, I worked myself into the position now where I've been, Intake Consulting is now almost 6 years old and thriving. This year was my best year yet. And a year where most people have had very, very difficult years. My business has thrived, and it's truly a blessing. And I'm very grateful.
Okay. And one question I had to ask you as you shared all that, which sounds really amazing and really energizing, and I think thanks for sharing that, was also this part about, I understand you, well, I don't know how far you went into learning the local languages where you were.
Yeah.
But in terms of, especially for those of us who have international careers or are privileged to be from various backgrounds, like, Hewan with Ethiopian background, and then speaking French as well, and myself, Ugandan, Kenyan, and having traveled in a number of places. I think being able to speak the language is almost a way to assimilate when you get to a new place, a way to gain the credibility that you're actually putting in the effort, but also a way for you to understand the culture and really work to embed some of what you're trying to deliver, either in terms of leadership or management or delivery in whatever form. How did that work for you? How's that played out in your career?
So I think the first thing about moving around is it humbles you, because, you are out of your comfort zone, and the things that you knew how to do, you can't do. The second thing is you learn that it's not about you and nobody cares. So you have to assimilate, like you must. It is not an option. But I learned this lesson way back when I was 23 years old living in Brazil. When the first month I lived in Brazil, the only thing I could eat for a month was McDonald's. And I could only eat the Big Mac combo, because the only thing I could say in Portuguese was numero uno, which is number one. I couldn't even order an apple pie because I couldn't pronounce the word for pie. I'm like pointing at the thing, to bring me a milkshake. No, not that. Bringing me like sauces. So I couldn't even get a apple pie to deliciously eat with my number one combo. So I ate McDonald's twice a day for a month.
Numero uno.
So that doesn't make you want to learn a language. I don't know what will. Like, you just having access to food, like, part of it was not being comfortable going into a restaurant and looking at a menu and asking for help. Like, this is the thing about living overseas. You have to ask for help.
Absolutely.
You have to humble yourself. And I think that's really the benefit of that. I mean, I think for me, the biggest learning from living in Turkey was working in the region. Like, on any given day, you're talking to Pakistan, Algeria, Saudi, Russia, like, you're code switching all day long, and you learn the best way to integrate, to work with any group of people, is to meet them where they are. So I can't be Omar, Western Omar. I have to be Emirati Omar. I have to be Saudi Omar. I have to be Pakistani Omar. I have to be Algerian Omar. I have to be Egyptian Omar. So you get to try on all these hats and really learn what makes these cultures tick. And you learn that you have to lean in first. Like, whether it's the language, or whether it's through like behaviors or reading about their culture or reading their authors, and just demonstrating that you're curious about the other and not self-oriented and not self-interested, that goes all the way in terms of bringing people close to you, connecting people to you. So people saw in Turkey that I made the attempt. I'm trying to speak Turkish. Now I'm doing my best. I'm saying please and thank you and hoş geldiniz and all the things that you learn living in Turkey. And the same thing happened in Indonesia, where I picked up about 1,000 words in Indonesian, just enough to be dangerous. So my team, my team will be talking. They're like, oh, Omar knows what we're saying. They're like, yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah. So just, I like repeat something back to them, and in Indonesian, they'd be like, oh, Omar knows what we're saying. So let's be careful what we say about this guy. So I think even from purely self-preservation, in certain cultures, you need to know what people are saying around you. Like, it's really important that you know what they're saying, or else you might find yourself in danger. So that's what I would say about that.
One thing that came to my mind, Omar, as you're going through all these changes, ups and downs, one thing I really applaud is how you kept your authenticity. You found out who you are and you stayed with it. Actually, Serufusa was asking me how I met you. Basically, you had organized, I think, a town hall or a cycle
Mhm.
meeting in Indonesia,
Mhm.
and you were there in full Star Wars gear, I think. And
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
post, and I was like, who is this person? I need to meet them. They need to mentor me to life because I want to stay who I am, the crazy, the good, the bad, and grow and still be respected. And that's how
Mhm.
I knew of you. And I think I've known you now for more than 10 years,
Yeah,
and I've
yeah.
been taking for your advice throughout. But how do you ground yourself in your authenticity? What are the rituals that allow you to be fully who you are?
Yeah, it's a really, really important question, and one that evolves with time as you learn and you grow. I think the first thing is your whatever your moral fiber and core values are, like your core values and beliefs. And I think you have to challenge your core values and beliefs to make sure they actually are core. Because until they're challenged, it's easy to believe something until it's challenged, and then you have to really get to defend it, or you have to really believe how much do I really believe in this thing. So I think that's part of it. From a rituals perspective, what allows me to lean into my authenticity is my fundamental belief that it's not about me. I've always, my parents taught me humility. My parents, it's great that we're having this conversation after Thanksgiving because actually, no
Great.
matter how. So at 25, I was the breadwinner of my family. I was the most wealthy person ever in my family. But the way my family taught me humility was for every Thanksgiving, I did the dishes. Not me and anyone, me by myself. I did all the dishes for everybody who had eaten. So that was my way of remembering my position and my placement. So like it would take 4 hours. Like to do dishes after Thanksgiving is a 4-hour ordeal. But it was a great, and the first few years I hated it, but like as I got older, it was like a ritual that really I felt so happy to do it. Like it was like serving. I'm literally serving my family. By cleaning up the dishes and taking on this challenge and doing it without any complaints, not looking for any accolades, just doing what needs to be done for the family. And I think that that's a ritual that, really served me very, very well in terms of keeping me humble and keeping me grounded. But I also think just really my fundamental core belief that it's not about me. Like I've never made anything about me, and that there's no ritual it's just a core belief. Like there's a purpose bigger than me. So one of the exercises that I sometimes do with my coaches is around ikigai. If you know about ikigai, it's the Japanese word for purpose. And your ikigai is a combination of 4 questions, which is, what am I most passionate about? What are my strengths relative to my great passion? Where can I be compensated, or where can I be paid, or what occupations linked to my strengths and my passion? And then what does the world need from me linked to compensation, my strengths, and my passion? If you can answer these 4 questions for yourself, then you have a core focus for your life. And once you have that core focus, you just have to put it into action and make sure it's consistent. It's the thin red line through everything that you do. And you can always come back to it. It's like, that's why we call these things a North Star, because in navigation, when they got lost, they looked up and they would see the North Star and they would know whether directionally where they were going the right way or not. And so having a North Star, having an ikigai, having a purpose will keep you calm in the deepest storm. It will allow you to maintain your focus and your commitment to your beliefs, even when you're in the biggest challenge. And I think that having that early on really has helped me keep me grounded throughout everything I've been through in my life.
I love that. I love that philosophy, that idea of being grounded in yourself, grounded in your North Star, but still being adaptable to various situations, different contexts. And I think it almost sounds counterintuitive, but actually it makes a lot of sense because that's how it works. And you cannot adapt. Others, if you keep on adapting without being grounded, you end up being so many versions, which just get you being thrown off. And it's a good lesson.
So, Hewan, what did we talk about last week? Bamboo, right?
Bamboo. I was learning how to be the most flexible bamboo on earth in the face of uncertainty.
Yes. So bamboo is very flexible, but it's grounded. Like it's centered. It's stuck there. It's not coming out of the ground, but it's moving. It's moving.
Indeed. And then one other thing I've picked up on there is we always say, and I think it's an American saying, like, if there are no pictures, it didn't happen. So I've not seen that picture of Star Wars with Star Wars gear yet, so I'm not sure, but that would be a great picture to have and to understand and see. But See, on another serious note, like talking about this real talk piece, and clearly you've had lots of experience. Sounds like you've had been on a journey to grow. You have some amazing advice for people, for your coaches, and for others. But what are you yourself working on to get better at? Because it sounds like you have it all figured out and sorted.
No, it doesn't.
That's the
No. I think it's an everyday. One of my favorite mantras is before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop
Mm,
wood, carry water. And so what that
love it.
means to me is you just do the work constantly, whether you are enlightened or not. There's still work to be done. There's still water to be drawn and wood to be chopped. And so the question for everyone is, what is the wood that you're chopping? What's the water that you're drawing? Like, what is the core foundational principle that holds everything else up in your
Yeah.
life? Like, it doesn't matter how everything else is going. If you don't have wood for the fire for the stove at night, you're gonna freeze. If you don't have water, you're not gonna be able to take baths, you're not gonna cook, you're not gonna be so it's like foundational things that I work on is more that stuff. I work on more like my foundational principles, my sleep, my gratitude, my hydration, my fitness, my learning, everyday learning, and so I just focus on that. I focus on these grounding, mindfulness, foundational principles every day. That's the wood that I chop and the water that I carry. And no matter what happens in my life, that's what I'm focusing on because that accelerates it cements your path and accelerates your growth because you are literally growing every single day. I'm getting better, getting smarter, getting more agile with every day because I chop wood every day and I carry water every day.
Serufusa, do you
And
see why he's my coach now? And I have to speak to him every other day for
I mean,
everything.
yeah. I mean, I'm glad I'm getting these advice for free over here. I'm glad
We'll
our
invoice
guests
him.
are getting
I'll
it
give
for
you his
free.
address afterwards.
I'm
No
expecting the
problem.
check. I'm expecting the check.
Yeah,
Good.
indeed.
Actually, speaking about real talk, so for our listeners, Omar has written more than 5 books now, right? What number are we reaching?
6 and 7's coming
6.
soon.
7 is coming soon. And
Yes.
one of the main topics throughout the I would say the theme, the red thread, is how to be great leaders, how to have the great people. So my first question for you around the work you've done and the research you've done is, what do leaders often get wrong about culture?
I think leaders think that culture happens by osmosis and they take themselves out of the cultural content. They don't understand to what degree who they are influences the culture and cultural environment. There's a concept called the leader's shadow or the shadow of the leader that is real, which is, we all filter everything through the behavior, personality, and influences of our leaders. So, for example, when a company, a company with 100,000 people, right? Huge company. You think that people are thinking about the CEO? No, they're thinking about the direct manager. Their direct manager is the company. That means the direct manager is the filter of the culture. So now imagine in a company with 100,000 people, there are probably, I don't know, 15, 20,000 managers in that company. That means you have 20,000 microcultures under the macro culture, which are the words that are on the website. And so each leader is a culture. And so what you believe, the way you behave, and what you focus on and what you don't focus on becomes the pervasive thing that rules the world of everyone who works with you. And I think I wish leaders would realize that their own behavior has a lot of implications on the lives of the people that are in their charge. And I wish leaders would not say, you work for me. I wish they would stop saying that because we don't work. No one works for anybody. We all work for the mission and purpose of the company. I wish they would say the people who work with me or alongside me or my collaborators or my colleagues, because that puts things in a proper context. Because when people work for you, then they have to take your nonsense. But when you work alongside people, you have to be at your best behavior. You have to be an effective collaborator so we can get more stuff done. So I wish that leaders understood their negative implications their being can have on a cultural environment. And like if they're upholding a false hierarchy, how that doesn't allow them to achieve high performance.
Oof.
And I think that applies not just in corporate, but applies in whatever
Anything.
sector,
Yeah, anywhere.
whatever area
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
in. That is so true. And
Yeah.
thanks for sharing that. Yeah.
Of course.
I have a question for you now from the other side, right? We're always talking about leaders who have like so many people under them, but most of us, it's just us, right? We have nobody reporting to us. We're just reporting upward. What's the mistake you think people do the most as they're navigating the corporate world or
Right.
climbing that career? What would be your biggest tip for them?
I think there's two things. I think getting too much in a hurry. And this is something that the Gen Zs and the Gen Alphas are not going to want to hear. I sound like I'm saying this, like, okay, slow down, slow. Yeah.
Or you just cost us all the Gen Zs and Gen Alphas who are listening to this
I
podcast.
know.
Logging off.
Their greatness takes time. Everybody out there, you are all great, but functional, situational greatness takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. And so when you get ahead of yourself, you may find yourself in deep waters. What I always told people was, listen, the ideal career should feel like water is at your chin. That's what it should feel like. You should feel like you're in water. You know you're in water. You're fully submerged, but you can breathe easily. That's what a career should feel like. When you move too fast, what happens is you end up like this, trying to snorkel and breathe, and like you put yourself in mortal danger. And this is not a game. Like the higher up you go, the more skills you have to have. Especially if you're a person of color navigating these spaces, we don't get second or third chances. We get one shot. So especially for us, I would say take time early in your career to learn, so that you can go slow to go fast. That's the minimal recommendation. Go slow to go fast. Learn the basics, build your roots, build your relationships. Then you can grow like crazy when you have enough. But like trying to get to a certain level too fast. And this is from someone who did that. So once again, I'm telling you what I know, not what I think. Like when I went from being a senior product manager to being a business unit director, I went from like water here at my chest to being under 20 feet of water. And I had to swim my way out of that job. Like I had to survive. I barely survived. When I went from the job in Turkey to going to be GM in Indonesia, I was 38 years old. I'm the youngest GM in the world. Oh, wow. How exciting. No, I'm underwater. And most people don't survive those experiences. They don't go on from that to get a bigger job. Or I've done it twice, but I told you the toll that it took is what I'm trying to. If I could have told my own self, this is what I'm telling you, is that I would have told myself to slow down. Like it would have definitely benefited me to have been a district manager for a year before going to be a BU head. I would have added value to me. Like that would have been an experience that would have been beneficial for me to be successful. So, that's what I would say around career navigation. The second thing I would say is don't be afraid to lead from where you are. So just because you don't have direct reports does not mean you're not a leader in the organization. You are a leader in your functional capacity. You have a voice and you have agency. So don't just be, like I said, I call people, don't just be a pizza maker. Don't be the person where they call in and like, okay, I want a pizza with cheese, pepperoni, anchovies and green peppers, and you just make the pizza and deliver. Like, don't be that person. Like, have some agency and lead from where you are, because if we wait for senior leaders to do everything, then we're going to be waiting for a long time. So if you see something, do something. If you see a problem in the organization, fix it. Don't just complain. Be accountable. Take accountability. Try to do something. People notice people who pick up things that are broken lying around and fix them. That's another way to make a reputation for yourself. Is not by doing just what your core functionality is, but also like fixing the broken things around you. If there's an SOP that needs written because people don't know how to do a thing, write the SOP. If there's a collaboration needs to happen or a way of working needs to be designed, don't wait for your manager. Design that thing. Like you can learn all these leadership skills in the job from your current capacity if you're paying attention and you're fully engaged. So that's my advice on that.
You're like dropping the gems one after the other.
I know.
Some
Left,
people's
right,
gonna
and
get a
center.
real awakening. They're like, I'm waiting for someone to come give me things to do. I should have started yesterday.
Indeed. Good. And yeah, I remember similar to what you've just said. Like I remember being told when I was young in high school that always told when you get into the career world, if you're given a coffee cup to wash, just make sure it's the cleanest coffee cup in the world. And that's how you get noticed. And that's how you get on. Good. And so going back to talked about music being another pillar to your career, to your life, to your philosophies. And in this podcast, we like to also just reflect on the music, and we call it the soundtrack to your life and what's it on now. So I'll give you time to think about it. I wouldn't put you on the spot. Maybe I'll start with mine. But for me, at the moment, and I'm listening to quite a lot of things. I'm listening to all the things from Shabuzi, like thinking about country music, to Lily Allen and her angst-filled album that's come out, to UK rap with Stormzy and Central C. But the one song that seems to really resonate with me now is a song by, and you should look him up if you haven't, Omar, but a UK rapper called Dave, and he's just released an album, and the song is called No Weapons. And it's a play on the biblical verse, no weapon made against me shall prosper, where he goes like, like, he talks about how like he's just going to make it. It's amazing. And no matter all the things, the curveballs the world throws at him, he's going to make it. And he talks about how if people underestimate him, he's going to be like overachieving. And in one verse, in typical rap fashion, he says he walks into a restaurant or to a club, and the waiter or the bouncer goes like, do you know what? There's a minimum spend of X amount. He's like, stop it, brother. I need to know the maximum spend, not the minimum spend. So that's been ringing on me. Like I'm always asking about like, what's the maximum for me? Like what I'm going. So
yeah, I love that.
Yeah, so love to hear, from you, and maybe I know Hewan has a soundtrack, but from you, Omar, what's your soundtrack at the moment?
So I have a playlist, a growing playlist, and I call my affirmation jams. So I listen to this playlist every day, all day long. It's just a mixture of songs. Every song has a different message, but it's affirming. Like every message is, I'm putting positive information into my brain at all times. So I keep my vibration high at all times. One of the songs on that playlist that I tend to come back to over and over again is History Has Its Eyes on You from the Hamilton soundtrack.
Oh, yeah.
So that song gets me like, okay, Omar, like, lock in. Like history has its eyes on you. Like, okay, what are you going to do? Like that keeps me pushing, looking for the maximum, as you mentioned, and reminds me that, there's always more to be done, more, water to be carried, more wood to be chopped. You never arrive anywhere because history has its eyes on you. So like, what am I going to do with every day, every month, every year? So it's like, that keeps me vibing. But I listen to a little bit of everything as well. But that's the one that I come back to for sure. Hey, Juan, what about yourself?
For me, okay, so this is a no judgment zone, so let's not judge. So I'm not sure if you've ever heard of Jonas Brothers.
I know Jonas Brothers. I know the Jonas Brothers.
Yeah,
of course.
Millennial, they used to be big back then. Sorry, I forgot. I'm Gen Alpha and Z. But as a millennial deep down, there were three brothers, and one of the brothers was Kevin Jonas, and he never used to sing because he thought he was not good enough. And very recently, he just released his first solo song, like after all these years, called Changing. And this talks about growing and changing and finding your own voice. And it's something I really relate to because we were often having this imposter syndrome of not being enough. Oh, others are better than us. But then slowly you figure out your voice, you figure out, oh, you're not that bad and the world wants to hear you. So that's my jump into it.
I like
that's
that.
my song.
I like that.
So we're almost on time. I have no clue. Like, this is how our sessions go, Serufusa, by the way. Like, but before we close, I just want to say that Omar has a series of amazing books. My favorite one is Leaderboard, and it really talks about like how to become the best type of leader you can be, the J.E.D.I leader. Omar you should go definitely check it out. But he also has a new book called Hire the Right Whom. Omar, if you want to say a few words about it, I'd really want to invite people to have it. I have my copy and I'm waiting for it to be signed.
Yes, it will be signed at the soonest. Hire the Right Whom. The insight within that book is that we've been prioritizing the wrong attributes in people that we're trying to bring into our organizations for years. And we put pedigree and previous experience over character. If you think about previous experience, we know that 70% of job variance is dependent on the manager. So now imagine hiring somebody to a new environment whose 70% of their performance is based on a human who you're not hiring, the manager they had. So is their experience actually relevant to your current environment? They may have skills, but is it going to be applicable where you are? So we overweight that experience. We also overweight pedigree, the name of the company you came from, the number of years of experience, the pedigree of your title that you did before, the pedigree of your university. These things do not make great leaders and teammates. And so I wanted to go back to, providing some guidance around, and introducing the concept of character-based hiring and character-based growth, because the next book coming out is Grow With Whom, which might be even more relevant to your listeners moving forward. That's coming out probably in January. But the idea of taking, how do we deepen core character attributes that lend themselves towards career and organizational success? So whom is an acronym for work ethic, heart, optimism, and maturity, which I call the 4 pillars of character excellence. Nothing you're trying to achieve and no career will be successful if you are not exhibiting strong work ethic, if you don't have passion for the work that you're doing and the people you're doing it with, if you don't have optimism more than skepticism and pessimism, because optimists move forward and pessimists and skeptics stay in place, and maturity, which is the ability to be self-aware, emotionally intelligent, and to be able to handle disagreement and in a mature and accountable fashion. And so these are table stakes. And so what I'm trying to do is reinvent the table stakes for who should be getting opportunity within organizations and how we can grow ourselves within, just for ourselves, but also within our careers and wherever we are as well. I do truly believe that, and in my studies, that if you enhance your work ethic, you enhance your heart and passion, you enhance your optimism, successful as an individual. So that's kind of like the path that I'm on now, introducing Whom. And Whom is not just a book, it is an entire ecosystem, platform, psychometric assessment, growth tool, AI coach, everything is coming. So I'm very excited about Whom. That's like the next 5 years of my life are going to be Whom. So that's where I'm at.
Oh my God, this is fantastic. Omar, thank you
Amazing.
so much for spending time with us.
Thank
We
you all very
recommend
much.
that you get the book for your Christmas holiday to do your holiday reading. And we hope you'll come back soon once that's out to
Yes,
share more about
for
it.
sure,
We'd
for
love to
sure. I'd
have
love
you.
to. I would love to. I'd love to come back.
Serufusa, any last words? And then we can let Omar go to his business.
I would say thank you so much. I think this has been amazing. And to get all these nuggets for free is even better. And thank you so much for sharing just your leadership journey and your experience. And I think it's just really helpful tool in us navigating not just our personal lives, but also professionally and the things that we do. So well done for that.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate you all.
Thank you, Omar. Bye for now.
You've listened to Roots, Routes, and Real Talk.